Greetings, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Susan Arendse. For those of you who are visiting my channel for the first time, thank you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For the regular visitors, did you miss me? I don't think so. Reason being, on this channel, we speak everything concerning life beyond the grave. And I know some of you are saying, hey, this auntie is bad luck, because this is the last thing that you want to speak about. Out of everything under the sun, why this topic? I want to make it clear to you that I never chose this topic. This topic was chosen for me. And in order for me to elaborate on it, I'll have to take you way back. So if you can get a drink, coffee, tea, I'd like to make some of you aware that my mother tongue is Afrikaans. So I'm so brilliant. I think in Afrikaans, and immediately as I speak, I pronounce the words in English. So if I don't articulate myself so beautifully, please bear with me. You ready? Let's dive into this topic. Why and when I started to talk about life beyond the grave. When a friend invited me to a barbecue, we call it a braai in South Africa. Now the weather wasn't playing with that day, and it so happened that it was cancelled. So on our way back, I recall this car stopped right next to us, and this gentleman asked us for direction. Now I politely stood in. I tried to explain to him where extension 4 in Eldorado Park was. And before I knew, I was shocked to find my friends running up the street. And here I stood with these three guys. The one jumped out of the car and I knew I needed to react. Now, you know that slow response. I managed to run in front of the car and cross the road. And by doing this, I reached the fence. And I wanted to jump or throw myself over the fence. In my attempt to throw myself over the fence, I probably turned around and I noticed that this guy had a blunt object in his hand. Now, for me to jump over the fence, I had to expose my back to him. Now, my father said to me, internal bleeding. So this guy grabbed me and he managed to pull me to the car, whereas the other one jumped out, and before I knew, I was in the car sitting between these guys. And I only recall the one said, sit still, trying to say that sit still in English. I can't remember how many times they forcefully hit me, and I could feel the blood streaming down my face. My tongue was swollen, so I couldn't even I couldn't scream. I can still hear these guys celebrating and laughing that it was so easy for them to get me into the car. We drove to Soweto, which is bordering Eldorado Park. And as we went into Soweto, I noticed there's a street bash. And I looked at these guys and I also noticed that they forgot to lock the doors. So I managed to push one aside and go to the door. And that is when I heard the voice for the first time. I heard, Susan, no. The voice sounded so real. I am not sure whether I heard it from within me or outside. And I had to react. We drove for, I don't even know how long, to an open field. When we got there, they pulled me out of the car. And that is when they started to hit me, jump on me, take out bottles. And it was just pain on pain. Now, the one thing that I need to bring to your attention is the fact that I've never realized that when we experience pain, there's not pain on pain. It seems as if the pain that you're experiencing deafens the other pain. And the other thing that struck me as well was the fact that we see on TV people being murdered, but it's a brutal thing. It is, it's long. While this was continuing, I screamed mama, I screamed papa, and I soon realized that they will not come and assist me. There was only one entity that at that point could help me out of this. What I did at that moment, I think I scared these guys as well, because the blood in me stood up. I actually sat up, and I remember one started kicking me in the face, and I asked them, gentlemen, I know you're going to kill me. Can I ask you if I could pray? And they were laughing. That didn't bother me. I continued. I prayed, and I thank God for my life so far on earth. I asked God if He sees it fit, if He could save me from this. Will you believe, when my back was against the wall, I decided to make a vow with God and negotiate. I said to God that if He sees it fit to save me out of this, I first want to travel the world, and then I will serve Him. I wrote a book, and in my book I go into more detail. What I will mention now is the fact that after escaping, I went into a yard and basically crawled into that yard. I recall this people's tiles were blue and white, and I fell there. This woman screamed, "Mama, yo," and calling the other people, and I knew that I'm not going to get help because it was more a scene than them trying to assist me. So I stood up and I walked down the road. Going down the road, I saw men, a group of men standing, and I prayed to God for them not to speak to me, because once they start speaking to me, they'll detect that I cannot speak any of the indigenous languages. But luckily for me, as I walked past them, I heard them swearing and spitting, saying, "Look at this woman." The one thing that my father also told me is, please, if you've ever faced problems, go to a house where you hear dogs barking, because if somebody can look after an animal, they can surely look and will be able to take care of you. So I would approach this yard where I heard these dogs barking fiercely. I took a stone and I hit the gate, and this young boy came out, and I could see the concern on his face when he asked me, "Auntie, what's happening?" And I said to him, "Please go call your mother." That was the last I can remember. I probably blacked out, but woke up in hospital. Fast forward, I had to learn to walk. I had to learn to talk. I basically slided on my back to the toilet. Nobody could touch me. My friends came and visited me, but I think this incident really took a lot of me. Years later, I found myself flying for South African Airways as a flight attendant, traveling the world. And I sat in Paris with a friend of mine, and I said to her, "You know what, I had this bad incident happening to me a couple of years back, she was a born-again Christian, and I asked her, does she think God will keep me or hold me responsible for the vow I made with him? And she said she doesn't know. And I thought, okay, fine. I flew for SA for nearly 14 years, and returning from Hong Kong, I fell ill, and so bad that the captain nearly diverted the aircraft to Mauritius. There was a doctor on board, and I don't know how many morphine injections later, they managed to keep me alive. Now, whether I ate something, I would not know. Later on, I had to discover that I have 915 allergies. I'm thinking 915 allergies, and this is all food-related allergies. It didn't make sense. But slowly I realized that it is a vow that I made with God, that it was time for me to do what I promised. These illnesses got so bad, and eventually I just decided, no, let me resign. Because one of the flight attendants went to, I think, New York, and she ate a banana. Now, I don't know whether she had allergies or what was the cause of death, but I saw her being brought home, and I thought, this is not going to happen to me. Let me just quit. We moved back to El Dorado Park, and my mother, them, and all the people being born again Christians came to my house, and I thought, now I'm not ready to be a born again Christian, and I knew that I had to serve God based on the vow that I made with him. I did everything in my means to move away from this vow, to a point where we lost everything. I sat on the street corner when my house was repossessed. I had a dream where God spoke to me, and he said to me, Susan, it's time for you to fulfill your vow. And I thought, yeah, no way. And I was just not ready. So I met up with old friends, and being young still, we partied. But that is where God also had to put his foot down. Whenever I had a drink, whether beer, wine, God poisoned my wine and beer with prophetic abilities. I was able then to look into people's future and past. Now, if you want to have a good time, you don't want people to come and tell you about your life stories. So eventually, I found myself alone. And this is where and how God works when you are by your lonesome self, and you have to make serious decisions. I moved from El Dorado Park, and God restored everything. He gave me a house back, and I bowed. I surrendered to his will. And that's when the teaching started. And it wasn't so much that God wanted me to be a born-again Christian, but instead, he wanted me to speak to you about life beyond the grave. For 3 years, it was me and the Holy Spirit. And they went through the Bible in verses. So what I'm doing here today is fulfilling this vow that I made with God, to speak to you about everything concerning life beyond the grave.